It is clean, old-fashioned hate week. Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Got a special new guest. I was able to connect with him from the college huddle. We got Rhett Talk. How are we doing today, buddy?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having on. So jump right into it. Georgia beat UMass 59-21. I will say it was a little closer than I thought, being it was 43-point spread at the time. And Georgia giving up way too many yards on the ground. That was one thing that really stood out. Yeah, and they run up and down the field on us, marched right down the field. But Georgia kind of got it going, almost covered at the end. I think just kind of had more talent. But Carson Beck had his second straight game with no turnovers, which is always a good thing. Nate Frazier, true freshman, looked good with 21 carries for 136 and 3 touchdowns. And Georgia kind of rolled at the end. I think we only had like one guy banged up, Christian Miller. But I know we were trying to get in, get out, and focus on Tech, who looks like a really formidable team this year. I know last year kind of pushed us to the edge there, but yeah, it should be interesting. Also, wanted to ask, what's your thoughts on having this on Black Friday and have it kind of on – well, you guys had an extra day, but having it on a short week usually. What were your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because you're going to be the only time slot, I guess. So it's going to be more people that aren't Georgia or Georgia Tech fans watching that game. It's not great from the standpoint of if you like to go to these games, like I go to all the Georgia Tech home games. I won't be at Clean Old Fashioned Hate this year, but I've been to the last 2 or 3 games that were at Sanford, and it's going to be tough to do that. A lot of people are doing stuff with their family on that Friday, but I don't really hate it nor love it. I'm kind of ambivalent toward it being on Friday.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested from a Georgia fan. How do you feel about it?
I thought originally it was pretty interesting. I don't really like it now because of the short week, because just injuries and trying to extend this season. But I do like it being at home. I hope that'll get the crowd up. And I'm just glad it's not at 12, because I think for years this was always like Saturday, 12 o'clock game. And
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of 12 o'clock games. Georgia always seems to come out sleepwalking. So I do like it that it's night game, 7:30 on Friday. And I think this might be one of the first times I've ever had a Friday night game in Athens. I could be wrong, but I know it's been a long time if they have.
Yeah, Georgia doesn't usually – I'm trying to think. I don't usually play Thursday or Friday night games.
Right. They never had. I've always heard they joking around saying Athens gets too crazy on Thursday or Friday night. That's why they never really done it. You're trying to Athens, Clark County, trying to keep everybody straight. I always heard that kind of joke,
Well, I lived in Athens for like 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I mean, you got like 100 bars in a 1 square mile radius. It gets a little rowdy.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be really interesting. Also, it looks like Tech coming off a good win over NC State. I know I watched some of your content, like you're a little stressed about it. You said it might have took some time off your life. So,
yeah, I terrorized everyone around me. Once they took the go-ahead score, and I sit with season ticket holders, so like I know these people that sit around me, and when they took the go-ahead score, I lost my composure a little bit, because I've watched Tech for a lot of years, and this is a very Georgia Tech way to lose a game, and I just smacked the bench as hard as I could. Now, it's like hollow aluminum, so it sounds like a shotgun going off, and they're all like, oh God. Yeah, that guy's mad. But look, we ended up doing what we had to do to win, and I think, that's kind of a testament to the direction Georgia Tech's going. I mean, Georgia Tech loses those games in the past 9 times out of 10. They're finding a way to win, and not to jump around a lot, but all of a sudden Georgia Tech's killing the recruiting trail, flipping kids. We just flipped a kid from Louisville. Before that, we flipped a kid from Clemson that's like a top 50 kid nationally. So Brent Key's got things going in the right direction, and R.A.D.J. Bat is getting some money into the program.
Yeah, I've noticed that on the recruiting trail. I know you've kind of been going back and forth to Georgia on some recruits.
Chase Linton was one of them. Y'all just got a 4-star defensive end.
That's right.
And that came down to the wire between Georgia and Georgia Tech. I know Rutgers was never really in it. Georgia Tech made a pretty hard push, and I think it's closer than a lot of people realized.
Yeah. That's good. It seemed like Brent Key's got you guys headed in the right direction. I know he kind of had some injuries with Haynes King, and also I'm a big fan of Buster Faulkner. I think he's really up and coming at OC. And a couple of weeks back, ironically, on our message boards, of course, after a loss, everybody has a meltdown, but everybody was like, "Fire Bobo," and I saw a couple like Dawg Rant, one of the ones I follow, like, "Hey, give Buster Faulkner a call. I'm sure he would come back." But maybe that's settled down now after, there's always meltdown after a loss. So I think he's up and coming.
I don't understand Georgia fans' hatred of Mike Bobo, and there's a lot of it. All the guy's done is averaged like 40 points a game the whole time he's been the OC at Georgia. I don't think Georgia's offensive problems this year are play calling problems or Mike Bobo problems. They've been execution problems, and this is probably, I mean, you've seen more Georgia than me. As beat up as you've been later in a season, I can't think of you being down to like freshman running backs before.
Yeah, that came out. We just had a lot of injuries. So we had the Branson Robbins kid who played pretty good, and he's like a bowling ball. He's like 240. He hasn't played at all, which early in the year it was like, hey, he's got turf toe. And I was thinking, all right, turf toe, maybe 3 to 5 games. But we're now in almost December, and I even heard things about, hey, he almost lost a toe. And I did hear this week he's done some things. We had Branson Robinson who sprained his he tore his ACL or MCL, whatever it was last year, pretty bad. And he came back this year, I thought, a little earlier. And anyway, he had a sprained MCL. He's been out. Trevor Etienne had the bruised ribs. He's been out. So you're down to, I'm glad we got Nate Frazier, but he fumbled, even though he sets fumbles, but he's done pretty well the last couple of weeks. And then Cash Jones, who's basically a third down back. And then you got some other young guys, but yeah, we can't take anymore. But hopefully we'll get some guys back. But
it certainly affected you. You're 98th in rushing offense, averaging 130 yards a game. It's been a long. I mean, Georgia's really been running back you for some years. I can't remember them being out of the top 25 in rush offense in a while.
Exactly. And then we finally, like the last 2 weeks, Carson Beck actually didn't turn the ball over. So we were all excited about it, but then, defense kind of gave up over 200 yards rushing. So we'll see. And then I did want to ask, looking at the matchup for Georgia and Georgia Tech. So is it going to be Aaron Philo or
Haynes King? You froze up on me, so you might edit this out. I don't know if that's a me or you problem, but you froze on me. Hello. So if you're talking, you're frozen on my screen right now.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, sorry about that. All right.
Good. Tee it
Not
up.
sure if it's, but we'll rephrase that. So is it going to be Aaron Philo or Haynes King? Think get the majority of the snaps? I know Aaron Philo's kind of scored that last minute or last second touchdown for you guys.
Yeah, so it's Aaron Philo. I would think that he gets probably 85 or 90% of the snaps, unless, Tech is trying to play tricks, which I don't think they are because they almost got beat by NC State. Haynes King looked worse from a health standpoint against NC State. He's 1 or 2 steps slower. Evidently, he has an injury. He can't throw beyond the line of scrimmage. So when Haynes King comes in, it's going to be a quick screen, a run, or a read option. With Philo, you've got, way more playbook. So what's Georgia ranked in total defense? They're 15th. So I don't think it would be smart for Tech to come out and say, hey, we're going to run a system by which you pretty much know which 3 plays are going to be ran based on what quarterback comes in. So King will probably come in to run read option like in a goal line situation, but I think you're going to see Aaron Philo. Now, Kirby Smart brought this up in the press conference, I think, released today. Aaron Philo broke Trevor Lawrence's all-time passing yardage record in the state of Georgia. The kid, he doesn't have anything that would pop off with intangibles. Like, he doesn't have crazy height. He doesn't have the best arm strength, but he's a playmaker. He's just a playmaker. and we're excited to have him. It's going to be interesting because Georgia Tech's been a team that really likes to run the ball a lot more, especially even when Haynes King was healthy. And you might see some stuff out of Tech that you just hadn't necessarily seen up to this point in the season in their playbook.
Yeah, I did hear that about he put up some crazy stats in high school. So
and he did it in 3 years because Brock Vandegrift started at Prince Avenue his freshman year. So he only started 3 years. Trevor Lawrence started all 4 at, was he at Carrollton or something?
Right. Awesome. And then what's maybe some matchups you're looking at for Georgia Tech game, and also thoughts on the 19.5 point spread? I believe it's currently on.
So it's moved a point, it sounds like. I think it opened at 20.5. I think even if you're a Georgia fan right now, you feel like that's a lot of points to cover against a Tech team that likes to control the clock, which even if you are a lot more talented, and Georgia is a lot more talented than Georgia Tech, we're going to try and run the ball a lot and control clock. Matchup wise, when we do throw the ball, we like throwing to Malik Rutherford out of the slot. He's a shorter, quicker back. We like to throw quick screens with him. I don't know that that's really going to work against Georgia. You're so physical on the perimeter, like with your corners, your nickel. Like everyone runs some kind of nickel defensive set now to match the advent of how offenses run. Singleton Jr., he was a freshman All-American last year, just going through the wide receiver matchups. He's a track star, like a true 10-2 flat 100-meter guy. Philo really likes to try and find him over the top. So it'll be interesting to see, if Tech can get their run game established, and I don't know how healthy Jamal Haynes is for Georgia Tech, and then we're able to catch you kind of on your toes, not respecting the downfield threat. That could be an interesting matchup. And obviously in the run game, your linebackers versus a pretty talented Georgia Tech front. And you can just look at how they've recruited. I mean, they're lining up with 4 stars on the offensive line. How do the linebackers for Georgia do with us, initially double teaming someone, getting off, trying to pick up backer, on a secondary block? Those will be interesting matchups too. And then obviously, Beck versus Philo or King. I know that's not a straight up matchup, but what version of Carson Beck comes out against Georgia? Is it the Alabama Carson Beck? Is it the Tennessee Carson Beck? And what version of Georgia Tech in general shows up? Is it the Miami Georgia Tech team, or is it, the Syracuse or Louisville? I tend to think it's going to be a better version of Georgia Tech. But we'll have to see Friday.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And I think this year Georgia's going to really – I've heard about it last 2 weeks, and I even thought maybe they were looking ahead a little bit in that UMass game. You can kind of tell they weren't really motivated in the first half and getting pushed around a little bit and then kind of turned it on. But I think Kirby wouldn't say it, but they've been kind of game planning for you guys because they know they don't want it to be a slip up. And I think you're going to get maybe some guys back, maybe kind of healthy or try to go. Normally, I think last year they tried to sit some guys because they knew they had Alabama in a couple of weeks, and that maybe almost kind of bit them because you guys were a possession away last year and made it real close. But
it ended up being an 8-point game at Bobby Dodd. And, I don't know if you've seen this. Key's a Tech guy. Obviously, he played at Tech. He's one of the few guys we could hire that I don't think is suspect to being poached away, which had been the case for previous Tech coaches. But I'm sure you're aware of Dawg Nation, and I don't, Tech said he hated Georgia, or Key said he hated Georgia, I think 5 months ago, and they're still not over it for some reason. I don't know why this is controversial in any way. And he even, like, most coaches will not acknowledge one game is more important to them than the other. They'll say, well, next game on the schedule. Key's like, no, I'm passionate about playing Georgia. It definitely, it's Tech's problem that this hasn't been, a true rivalry in the past because they just haven't been competitive. And I think everyone can agree it just feels different for this year. Like, you're not going to sneak up on Georgia. I think Tech definitely has Georgia's respect, or Key and Faulkner and staff do. But yeah, I don't really understand Dog Nation getting up in their feelings about it.
Yeah, I just think that's Brandon Adams. I listen to him religiously. I think he's just trying to get Georgia fans something to really focus on. He's trying to do the loud. What does he call him? Loudmouth blower or whatever it is. So he's just trying to get some talk, some talk out there. And then I always thought it's interesting that Buster Faulkner being with Georgia, I think he was as analyst for like 3 years. I think 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I guess he was the Stetson Bennett whisperer over there. I know Bennett spoke really high of him.
Yeah, I always thought that is, him sitting in there, and I think he knows Georgia's offense backwards and forwards, even though, we do have Mike Bobo, and it could have changed a little bit with Todd Monken, but I always thought that was an interesting storyline.
It is, and then you have two former Tech staffers on your staff. So you have Andrew Thacker, which is not a great addition, in my opinion. I mean, we fired the guy because we had the 129th ranked rush defense with him. But you do get Josh Crawford as your running backs coach. He was our wide receivers coach. You hired him for recruiting. I mean, that is why you hired that guy. He's a really good recruiter. But that's something else that adds to this rivalry. Like, Georgia and Georgia Tech have not been recruiting the same kids in the past, and you haven't seen, Georgia hiring people from Tech staff in the past or vice versa, which has happened, over the past 2 years, which is just interesting.
All right. I think it's going to be a really good game. And before we'll do a score prediction coming up here, but I want to give a shout out to our great sponsor, VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. I think Alabama fans and Ole Miss fans, and I'll say Texas A&M fans all probably need some of these. 0 carbs, 0 sugar. Great at the golf course, great at tailgate, great at the pool. My personal favorite is the watermelon. The Doghouse 20 for 20% off. Again, that's Doghouse 20% off. VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. Also check them out on Instagram as well. Great sponsor of the show. And then, Rec Talk, if you could give us a prediction, what you think is going to happen in maybe that 19.5-point spread.
Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say, I don't think Georgia covers 19.5 points against us. Which might be a surprise to some Georgia fans. That's fine. I mean, this game's going to come down to, can Georgia Tech run the ball on a Georgia defense that has struggled to stop the run this year. If Georgia Tech can establish a run game and stay on point, I mean, I'm looking at third down conversion percentage. Georgia and Georgia Tech are both converting about at the same rate, 0.401 to 0.409 for Georgia. Third down defense, similar as well, 0.307 to 0.318 for Georgia. If Georgia Tech can run from like more than 150 yards, and they can pick their spots with Philo throwing the ball, Georgia Tech could win this game. I know that sounds crazy, but they absolutely could. I mean, this is going to be, a game that every Georgia Tech player is up for. If Georgia Tech can't run the ball and Georgia, they hold us to like under 100 yards, then Georgia probably blows us out. If I'm going to take my, I guess, gold-colored glasses off, I think it's something similar to what it was last year. A 7 to 10 point game where just the talent differential later in that game might take over. So I don't know what the over-under is. I would probably take the under without even knowing what the over-under is. Probably something like, I don't know, 31 to 23, maybe Georgia. That's probably my score prediction as of now.
Looks like over-under on ESPN is 53.5.
So I'm hitting the over with my thing. I don't know, just the way that both of these offenses have been up and down, I tend to take the over. The other thing we haven't talked about is if you look at Georgia Tech's defensive stats, they don't look great, but, they held the best offense in the country to 23 points. This defense is playing as good as any defense in the country. So it'll be interesting to see, how Carson Beck and that offense does with a much improved Tech defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So you're going 31-23. Yeah, I'm going to say Georgia's not going to cover, but I think you're going to get at home at night. Georgia knows what's on the line. They don't want to have to lose this, and then you got to go and play. You see, they're going to be Texas A&M. We'll get into that a little bit about that chaos that happened this past weekend. Carson Beck's been playing clean. We can somehow get the run game going. And I think this kind of comes down to what you said is who can outrush each other in turnover margin. If Georgia plays a clean game and can get between 150 and 200, I think they're going to be okay. And I think, Aaron Philo coming into a hostile environment is going to be tough. But I'm going to go 31-17. But I don't think I would definitely tell everybody to take that 19.5 points. I think Georgia's only 3-7 or something like that against the spread. Hasn't been good at all. But I'm going to go 31-17.
Yeah, when you see a spread move down, that means a lot of people were taking Tech in 20.5 points. So it doesn't mean anything for the game, but that tells you the perception of the betting public. Now, I will say this, and maybe it upsets you. Don't bet. There's a reason these casinos are not losing money.
I agree.
And if you end up winning in the long run, you'll get banned. So bet a Coke with your buddy. I wouldn't bet with the bookie.
Yeah. Bet a Coke and a moon pie is what my late granddad used to say, something like that.
There you go.
Yeah, then looking at this this past weekend, I want to go over this real quick with you. College football rankings looks like it's going to be Tuesday. It's Monday night. So it's going to be Tuesday night when this comes out. But the AP poll's out, which I know you can't really read too much into it because they're all over the place.
Right.
But you being kind of more of an ACC guy, and I know everybody's like, hey, we want to try to get in more SEC guys, but it looks like Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot. Alabama shot themselves in the foot, and then also Texas A&M. So what's your thoughts on the playoffs and the chaos?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, before this weekend, you were set up for this doomsday scenario in the SEC. A lot of other content creators have talked about this, but why we did away with divisions as you added teams to conferences makes no sense. And that's kind of why we've gotten into the situation we did with different conference scenarios and tiebreakers and whatnot. Yeah, Ole Miss did shoot themselves in the foot. Ole Miss was, controlled their own destiny, especially with the convincing win over Georgia. And then they lose last week. A&M loses last week. So what is it now? The winner, I think that clinches it for Georgia, right? They're going.
Unfortunately, because I was hoping we weren't. I wanted us to go 10-2, maybe get a home game and heal up, like take 3 or 4 weeks off. That's what I was really hoping, but all that crap happened. So we got to play now. That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, and so you'll catch A&M or Texas, the winner of that, or is it more complicated?
Yeah, it's a winner of Texas and Texas A&M, which it's hard to beat a team twice. I really don't want to play Texas again. And then also, I don't trust this committee. It's like, are you going to penalize the loser of the conference championship, and how far do you drop?
They say they don't, but
I did last year. 1-6. We dropped from 1-6 last year. Big jump.
Yeah, and if you don't punish the loser, then in some way the team that like that game didn't matter for them. So it kind of doesn't feel right for a loss not to matter for you, especially with the SEC where you got all these teams with 2 and 3 losses. So I don't know. I guess you're saying you'd like to be sitting like Tennessee is right now, where they're
so backing their way in.
You value the not playing a conference title over a first round bye, then?
Yeah, it's just I want us. This is a marathon this year. Is heal up. We maybe can get some of our guys back with 3-4 weeks off. Now you got to play an extra game. If you lose, you're going to have to go on the road at, I don't know, Penn State, Indiana, one of those cold environments. But if you win, I know that's good, and you get a bye. But also, I just think a lot of Georgia fans wanted a home game. They just think that would be a crazy environment. You're going to have a home college football playoff game. So that's kind of where we were at.
For sure. And I don't know that any of this – I think it's still subjective, right? Because how much does strength of schedule play in? Like Indiana has an awful strength of schedule. They're at 10th. Yeah. So should a 1-loss Indiana team get into the playoffs over a 3-loss Alabama team? Right. I don't know how they decide this. And rest in peace to Mike Leach. He called this a long time ago. He's like, a lot of these people on the committee have never been associated with the game on any level. It's just like, hey, like I think I'm not. It's not to get political, but I think Condoleezza Rice was on the committee at one point. Why would you have Condoleezza Rice on? So who knows? It kind of, I know we're all excited about a 12-team playoff, but it just kicked the can down the road to 12 versus 13 as opposed to 4 versus 5. Because look, you even got Arizona State at 14th, Ole Miss at 15. And the Big 12 has been awful this year. Like they have not been a good conference. So 3-loss Ole Miss better than a 2-loss Arizona State, who knows? So I can't make sense of it, man. I mean, we'll see, I guess, after conference championship week if they really penalize teams for losing a conference title. And who knows how you would really even deduce that anyways. I mean, I guess from where they dropped, but who knows?
I mean, you still got some rivalry against, hey, let's say Georgia Tech upsets Georgia, and then we got our back against the wall, three losses if we beat Texas, or Tennessee chokes on the chicken bone and loses to like Vandy. That would knock them out. I mean, that's always.
It wouldn't be the craziest thing, and that would be. And I know you wouldn't. I mean, obviously, you're a Georgia fan. You hate Tech. Screw Georgia. I hate them. Right. But if Tech did upset Georgia, then you would really know whether a conference title penalizes a team, right? Right. Because if they win the SEC title, they'd be in, and they'd be a 3-loss team on the outside looking in. So. Right. Who knows? Also, Clemson, South Carolina has playoff implications. Like, who thought we'd be saying that, 5 months ago?
Exactly. To me, South Carolina's the most dangerous team, red hot down the stretch. I'm glad we're not playing them. I was telling some friends, I was like, man, I'm glad we're not playing because that D-line is impressive. It's scary.
Yep, and they got Kyle Kennard was at Tech last year. They got him out of the portal, and then Jared Ivey, who gave you fits when you played Ole Miss, also was a transfer from Tech. So I definitely wish we still had those kids. But yeah, this rivalry week is going to have a lot of implications. Even Auburn, Alabama. Not that it has implications, but Auburn just beat Texas A&M, and that Auburn is always competitive with Alabama, it seems like, in that game, no matter how down they are.
I think, is it at Jordan-Hare, which is always it's weird stuff. Weird stuff happens. I forget where it is exactly. Sure. Yeah, but that should be interesting. But yeah, Rec Talk, really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. How do we follow you and your content?
So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm not super active on Twitter, but I am on Twitter at rec_talk because my other one got hacked, so I had to now put an underscore in it. You can follow me on YouTube. I do a ton of videos on there. Just type in Rec Talk, I should come up. And we didn't do it much here, but a lot of trash talk. We did a live stream last night where I had Georgia fans call in, and we went back and forth with them. So come check us out. We'll be streaming the game or our reaction to the game Friday. Dawg should be there, my other content creator that does Tech football. So I watch some Dawg stuff, man. His is always funny. Always like watching his stuff. He goes after Georgia like no one else. So yeah, I've seen some of his videos. He gets excited when we lose, so I've seen him. Yeah, he had the hats for a while, and then he figured that y'all kept winning because he kept wearing hats of your opponents, and he stopped wearing the hats, and then you didn't win at the same rate. Gotcha. Yeah, everybody check out Rec Talk. Looks like on the road to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is impressive. And then also check him out on Twitter as well. Looks like he's got 753 followers. So yeah, check him out on there. Yep. Yeah, man, appreciate you coming on today. And if everybody's still around, make sure to like, subscribe, share the podcast. And I'll give you Go Dogs and the Go Jackets. No, man. That's it. There you go. You won't ever hear me say GD. I got you, man. All right, man. I appreciate it. All right, man. Thank you.